Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of With Conviction, a story of hope, horror, and history. My name is Rain, my pronouns are she, her, and I am your GM for this adventure. With me are my victorious heroes for this campaign. Why don't you all introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Alice. My pronouns are she and they, and I play Desdemona Hartwood, whose pronouns are also she and they. And Des is a sort of punky, gothy, magical girl with a heart of pink.
Hi there, I'm Skylin. My pronouns are they and them, and I play Kris Whitlock, whose pronouns are she or any. Kris is our very sporty, magical not a girl who is in it both tired and feeling a bit of pride after the fight that she managed to handle today.
And I am Rob. My pronouns are he, him. I play Eliza Hardwick, whose pronouns are she, her. And Eliza does not understand how bad the situation is at the moment.
So, as part of the conviction system, every character has two aspects. One is the mystic core, which is sort of their class, for lack of a better term, and the other is their focus, which is sort of the archetype that they lean into. And Desdemona is a Roseheart mystic core with a guardian focus, which is the short explanation is that she's primarily focused around protecting others. That's why her weapon is a shield. It doesn't have to be, but that is where most of her abilities are focused.
Kris is a firebrand artillery. She doesn't have a weapon, really. She considers herself the weapon if she's going to be pressed about it. Her attacks are all at range. If you might remember a few episodes back, we had a moment where, actually, no, it was last episode, where Rain reminded me that, yeah, you can't hit these things that are in the same zone as you. And that is part of the mechanics for the artillery.
And Eliza is a stalwart soul and warrior. The stalwart soul is basically reflecting her status as the most experienced of the group, gives her that ability she has where she can take the stress she takes and convert it into darkness. And warrior is naturally the most damage output focused of the focuses, gives her sword as her weapon, allows her to fly with her jetpack wings, and also increases her ability to both deal damage to targets and to sway them effectively.
Indeed. All right. Well, the last we had left you, you'd pursued the last of the monsters to a stream northeast of town. Kris, rushing ahead, was able to not just hold her own, but slay the hive before the others could catch up to clean up the rest of the snakes. You'd retrieved the sword it had stolen, and after some experimentation, Eliza had found that it can cut the air open to reveal a gray sky and a twisted forest. Now, the hooting and cacophonous gibbering gives way to a spectacular whooping and hollering, rising to a piercing shriek. The smoke billowing out of the wound in space flits this way and that, carrying the yell with it. In a sliver of a second, seething shapes boil outward. A mass rises from the sludge of the dark river and pulls itself forward on slick pseudopods, while a gangly creature carrying a long musket leaps down off a shadowed bank and pushes its way through the open portal. As the sludging mass surges through, Eliza, the sword is knocked from your grip, pulling free of the hole in space. It snaps shut, and the beasts who have escaped lurch toward you.
Oh. All right, then. All right. Yeah, Eliza is knocked over and she loses her grip on this cavalry saber that she had in her left hand, but she does pull out her own rapier. And I think she just looks at the other two and says, "All right, let's put on our war paint." And Eliza transforms. As a minor note, Eliza is still at 2 light, so the fire in this transformation sequence is all that reflective gold fire. And she rolls a 6 on the transformation, which I believe means she's hesitating.
Yes,
That's her having to get back up after being knocked over.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else here who is not already transformed, and do they want to?
Desdemona is not transformed, and she does not want to.
Makes sense. So, as a reminder, This fight has 3 zones. There is the south bank, there is the river, and then there is the north bank. My understanding is that the 4 of you, if you include Hazel, are all on the north bank. You see 7 of these creatures. There is
Whoa.
one large sludgy mass. There is a thin, lanky one. The mass has taken up a space in the river. The lanky one with the musket has occupied the south bank, along with 3 vague shadows, and 2 shadows that seem more solid but still struggling to exist are occupying the north bank with you. Who's going first?
I think Eliza is going to go first as she gets to her feet. She gives a quick glance at Desdemona and says, "Cover Hazel." Because Hazel has already taken a couple of hits in the fights before this and also twisted her ankle. But she just walks up to, I think, the. Actually, she's just going to look at the 2 solid shadows that are in our zone. And eyeing both of them, she just says, "Creatures from beyond, return to this den from whence you came, because otherwise I will be your end. You think that you've found a world of prey. You think that you've found something easy. You are so wrong. You have found this world's appointed defenders. You have found Phoenix, Radiant." And once again, the kanji made of fire appear behind her. And then she says, "And with her you found..." Did you 2 pick your names yet?
This is like, was I supposed to? If I'm not gonna like use the magic or whatever?
Kris is blinking and just like working on standing up and getting ready to hit things. She does not care about names right now.
Eliza realizes that you 2 haven't and tries to recover her momentum of, "Turn back now, creatures of shadow, or I will shine a light that will end every little glimmer of darkness you have." And I'm rolling sway against one of the shadows.
Sounds good.
And I roll a 10 for sway.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Well, it becomes a 9 because of hesitating.
Still does it.
All right. So one of those shadows moves one towards light.
All right. Yeah.
And that's my turn.
Let's see. You see the one on the far side, on the far bank, level its musket at you and aim up.
Uh.
And it looks like it's aiming at your zone, the north bank. That's my turn.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
Oh, that's bad.
Hey, incoming! And Kris is going to take her turn. I'd like to use Reed to watch the other distance fighter.
Lanky boy.
Here. Lanky boy, our one with the musket here.
Oh, lanky boy.
So with Kris at +3 light, that's going to be that bonus to fight actions.
Good Lord.
Well, I think this is why you put a cap on the.
It absolutely is, yes.
So she's going to sort of shakily get up and. Okay. She plants her feet into the ground, and the dirt beneath her feet rises just a little bit into something of a pedestal so that she's got a solid ground to stand on. She reaches down and pulls out a stone. Okay, yellow thing first. And this softball-sized chunk of stone in her hand glows a little yellow with the light that she's channeling right now. And she's going to take her shot against the other long-distance fighter here. So we're rolling place with Reed against the thin and lanky one. That is a 10 on the dice, plus 4 is 14.
Oh yeah, as this thing is aiming, you just take its head straight off.
Oh.
DM, does that hit?
Yeah, it's just gone.
Okay. I was about to ask, like, is it still operational without a head, or
No.
I never know what you're gonna throw at us.
Yeah, no, that's a perfectly reasonable question. But this one, that strike was definitely enough to put it down.
I think just because they're standing so close to each other, Eliza offers her free hand for a high five.
Kris shakes her head. 1 down, many to go. At least this thing can't hit us in the back. You can see on her face, her chin is wobbling a little bit, Eliza.
The large shambling mass sludges out of the river and begins to move toward you. As the river is a slow zone, it's taking some time to extricate itself. It will be there on its next turn.
That makes it Desdemona's turn. She's going to follow Eliza's direction, and she's gonna stand with her body trying to be in between Hazel and any of the other monsters. She's gonna roll protect.
All right.
That is plus endure. That is a 9.
All right. Yeah, partial success. Yeah, the large one is going to lurch out of the river and up onto the bank with y'all. And it is going to take a swing at. Yeah, it'll take a swing at Des.
Good job.
That is an 8, so you take 1 stress.
And I can't use my actual abilities unless I transform, right?
Yeah.
Who's up next?
Does Hazel get a turn in this, or is she just kind of an objective?
Yes. Has it gone?
Yeah, all the heroes have gone.
Okay. Yeah. In that case, Hazel is going to take her turn, and she is going to take a swing at this large sludgy mass with the pipe. And rolls a 6. So it strikes, but this thing deforms, and the pipe just seems to go through it without any kind of serious injury. One of the vague shadows start moving across the river, but again, it is somewhat stuck. So, who's next?
Friends, what do we think?
I think Kris is well positioned to pick off these shadows as they come up, if y'all are up for focusing on the stuff that's near us.
That makes sense to me. Because they'll have to cross the river, and that'll take time, and you can just nail them as they're coming across.
Okay. Eliza, handle what's here. I'll make sure they don't come up on our back.
Eliza just nods and takes a formal fencing pose against the slab of goo.
Kris turns. She's not moving, so she's going to take the time to line up her shot, use read, and take down the shadow, or try to take down the shadow that is coming into the river.
Okay.
That is an 8 on the dice plus 4.
Woo.
Yeah, that'll do it. It goes through it as if it was not there. And one of the more solid shadows is going to take a swing at Hazel. And that actually does hit, but because Des is there, you take that shot on your shield.
Actually, it would just be on my arms.
Oh yeah, you don't have your shield. So you are able to push this thing off balance as it goes in for a swing.
Excellent.
I think, does Kris want to go yet, or?
Kris already took her shot.
Kris did
For this
take that
round.
shot. All right, I guess it's Eliza. Eliza is just going to advance on this goo mass, and she just says, "You're not even as coherent as the others. You're just some sort of slime. What do you think you can do against us?" And that's a sway roll. That's an 8 on the dice. I don't think any of my skills apply, so it's a flat 8.
All right. It burbles. It seems to have understood you, but its ability to respond is limited. The other more solid shadow is also going to take a swing at Hazel.
These things don't like her.
Yeah, no. She's in the fight. And that one is actually going to hit. It I didn't think about how these things would hurt people.
What if it reaches into them? Because they are semi-solid shadows, right?
Yeah, I hate that. It should be that.
Yeah. Oh, that's the worst. Yeah, so you see this thing sort of reach through her body and she turns pale and sort of stumbles away from it. All right, who else needs to go? Eliza has gone. Kris has gone. I think it's Des.
Okay. So I still have sludge mass and shadows in front of me, right?
Yes.
I think having done a decent job protecting for now, I'm gonna just try to punch these things because I don't think I am holding anything.
Who are you attacking?
Good point. The sludge mass, that's what was attacking me.
Can shield check apply for you doing like a linebacker tackle, even if you don't actually have your shield?
I think that's up to Rain, but
Are you doing that kind of shoulder check action?
I didn't say I was. So I'm gonna say for this time, I'm not doing that.
In that case, no, it would not apply.
Fair is fair. That is a 9 on the dice, though.
Still hits. Yeah, and you get you find something solid inside this mass, which is probably should be worrying, but whatever it is, you seem to hit it hard enough that this thing lurches and you can see some of the slime starting to bleed away.
Does any of the sludge get on me?
Yeah, it's definitely wherever you were hitting it, you've got some on your hands.
Excellent.
Let's see. I'm going to use. Who have I used? Oh no, I can use them as much as I'd like. Why am I asking this question?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have one of the shadows attack Des.
Okay.
7, just barely. Yeah, so it leaps at you and sort of its whole body passes through you and lands on the other side and looks a little bit confused, but you definitely feel some cold malice pass through your body and you take a point of stress.
All right. Hazel?
Oh, she's still up. Okay.
Yeah, she's still going. She's gonna keep swinging at this time at the shadow that's attacking her. She misses, unfortunately. It is a shadow, so she seems to be having a tough time with that. After her turn, the large sludge mass is going to lurch and it's going to see an opportunity while she's distracted and attack her as well. It lurches up like some kind of horrible wave and crashes into her and pulls her under.
Oh.
And a moment passes, and another moment, and she doesn't seem to be emerging. Hazel is downed.
Fuck. Hazel!
There's no response.
There's just wisps of golden fire emitting from Eliza. Does anyone mind if she takes the first turn here?
Get her out of there!
I was just gonna say, I think all three of us are gonna be leaping into the fray for this one. But yes, none of us mind if you, as players, take the turn.
Eliza's jetpack unfolds, and she's just going to streak right at this thing, putting her whole weight and the force of her rockets behind her as she's going to fight the sludge creature. All right, and that's actually a 10.
All right. So that's what, 2 stress?
Yeah, because I'm not in darkness mode right now.
Yeah, I wanted to ask.
Yeah. And she actually yells out as she's just stabbing into this thing, "You can't have her!"
This thing twists and swirls and lurches and rises up and attempts to go after you as well. But does actually miss this time.
I think as it's doing that, Eliza just like crouches down with her one hand on the ground, and her rocket thrusters like aim up at it and streak that golden fire into it, and that's why it misses.
Nice. All right, who's next?
What do you think, Skylin? You want me to go first? You want me to try and attack something?
I don't know. You might as well.
Yeah, okay. Des, without Hazel to be trying to protect, she's going to charge in and try to slam into this sludge mass, having seen that punching it worked. So I will want to use a shield check for that if you're cool with it.
All right.
More like a shoulder check without the shield. Okay, that is an 8 with the shield check.
Yep, that deals a point of stress.
Okay.
And as you are slamming into this thing, you once again find something solid within it that you strike, and it lurches.
Where's the sword, by the way?
It has been abandoned in the bank side. It's just fallen onto the dirt and muck.
Okay, well, that's my turn.
All right. One of the solid shadows is going to... I think it's going to attack Eliza. Good lord, I hate my dice. That's a 4.
I think as it's coming at her, she just like beats it with the side of her blade and knocks it off course.
Your blade flares with light as you knock it aside, and it stumbles and honestly face plants into the ground. Is that everyone? No, Kris hasn't gone yet.
Kris was standing on a platform that she'd conjured from the earth. She is now floating some 6 inches above it, a bright light surrounding her wings that are holding her there. Her face is fury defined. She looks to where Hazel was, shakes her head and turns. Fuck. And she's gonna line up a shot and just keep picking off these shadows.
All right, which one are you shooting at?
One of the ones on the south bank.
Got it.
Take your pick. That is a 5 on the dice plus 4 is 9.
Question, to be clear, did you use read before you did that?
Sorry, yes I did. I queued that with lining up the shot.
Okay.
I did not specify the actual ability. My bad.
Yep, it passes straight through one of these shadows, and there is now only one left on the far bank.
Are you two going to be able to get her out of that?
Des looks to Eliza. Yes, right?
Always bet on me.
All right. One of these more substantial shadows is going to keep attacking Des. Finally, that is a 10, so you take 1 point of stress as this thing sort of looks like it's trying to beat you to death, and there's no physical strike that you feel, but you definitely feel that shadowy malice again.
All right. Who hasn't gone this round?
I believe Kris was the last one. I believe this is the top of the next round.
All right, coach. You said bet. Go bet.
All right. Des, give me a boost.
She blinks at Eliza for a sec and then like puts her hands together, like knitting her fingers together.
Good. Eliza runs towards Des and gets the whole jump launched off of Dez's hands. streaks into the air a bit further on the golden light from the jetpack, and then just looks down and retargets on this sludge mass, and she's going for a fight action.
I would like to make you a deal as the GM.
Okay, I'm listening.
I will count that as both Des and Eliza's turns if Des wants to use the help action.
Ooh, okay. I'm into that.
The consequences of that is that I will immediately take 2 turns.
I'm fine with this. Eliza?
Works for me.
All right, so Eliza, what do you consider Des?
Des is listed as a friend.
Take that +2.
All right, so that's a +2 on top of. Am I also benefiting from reading patterns because of using her fencing skills? Or is this not something she learned in fencing?
This one seems to be moving with more logic to it than a swarm of snakes, so I'm going to say just barely yes.
Okay, so a total of +4. On top of a 3 on the dice, still makes it a 7.
All right, yeah, you stab downward at this thing and strike something solid. And as you pull your sword out, you can see red blood gleaming on it.
There's just a moment of shock and horror on Eliza's face.
For Kris's sake, I'm going to say she's not looking at that right now.
And now I believe, as per our agreement, I take 2 turns.
Mm-hmm.
One of these shadows is going to swing at Kris, and the mass is going to swing at Eliza. The one swinging at Kris hits and deals a point of stress. It reaches up and you see its claws dig in, and there's no blood, but it still feels like something dragging its nails through your leg, and it's trying to pull you back down.
This would deal 1 point of stress, right?
Yes.
Okay. In this moment, Kris turns to pay attention to the thing that is trying to drag her down. That high-heeled boot of hers raises and falls, and there is a spark of light where the heel strikes the stone. And I'm going to use Burning Bright to take that stress and convert it into light instead. Anybody paying attention to Kris at the moment, her hair is now strawberry blonde.
Amazing. All right, and the other one, I said that this shambling mass was attacking Eliza. Is that right?
I believe you did, yes.
Okay. And this one is going to miss. This is what I get for not giving these guys attack bonuses.
Yeah. I think this time it's just Eliza relying on that fencing training, and she kind of just dances back out of its way as it's going for her.
Nice, nice. And I believe it's Kris's turn now.
Yeah, Kris grits her teeth and steps aside from the shadow. She's got a job to do. She's going to do it. She turns and she will use Reed to line up a shot and do her best to take down that last shadow at a distance.
All right.
For the math on the back end, it would be +6. That's 2 from place and 4 from Kris's current light for the Reed ability. However, the cap is +4. For that reason, I believe that is a 7 on the dice. +4 is 11.
Yeah, that'll do it. You are one by one shredding these things at a distance. And the last one falls, and now everything that remains is on your side of the river.
All right, nothing at our back. Let's handle the rest of this.
Where are we in the turn order now?
I am about to take my last turn for the round.
Okay.
Yeah, one of these things is going to leap at Des. And once again rolls terribly. It's a 5.
Okay, I think Des turns to one side so that this thing can slide past her a little bit.
Makes sense. You're starting to get a feel for how these things move.
Definitely harder without the magic, but so it goes.
Who's going first? It's the top of the round.
I have a question for the GM. Would you be okay with me having Kris take both her action and her movement to get fully into the river in the single turn?
She does have wings.
But no flight ability.
What are your skills?
Place, sprint, charm. Find a loophole's at -1.
I am going to say that you can make a skill check with place to try and pick your way into the river and see if you can do that.
Okay. And that would be both her movement and her action. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. This dice roll matters a little bit more because this is not a fight ability. Well, lucky me, that is 9 on the dice plus 2 is 11.
Okay. So here's a question for the group. How mean should I be?
4.
4 out of what?
I don't know.
4. I don't know. Do you want to tell us what you're thinking first?
Do you have a deal you want to offer me?
No. What is happening is that this mass has an ability
Uh-oh.
where it can attempt to stop people from leaving its zone. I'm trying to decide whether I should do that.
You had me roll. Let hit roll. I'm good with that.
All right.
There's an idea.
Yeah.
All
right. This one actually does hit. So you do not take any stress. However, you see a pseudopod whip out of this mass and wrap around you and start pulling you back. So
Okay.
you are still on the northern shore.
I have a question.
Yes.
Was that a mixed success or a full success?
It was a mixed success.
Could we say that stops Kris from being able to move into the river this round, but she's still on the way?
That seems entirely reasonable.
Handshake across the internet.
Handshake. To be clear, these are not provided for in the rules. This is me in my capacity as the GM, trying to make things a little more interesting.
Okay, so that's Kris's move. Does that also then count as the attack or no for you, Rain?
It does not. This is a thing that it just can do.
Love that. Love that for us.
Yeah, I knew you were going to be in this fight. My priority was to put this thing in the same zone as you.
Ah.
I wonder why.
I was waiting for you to move. Anyway, so one of these shadows is going to take a swing at Des again because it keeps missing. And this one does actually hit, so you take another point of stress.
Okay. All cards on the table here. I am at 4 stress out of 5, and I am at 4 darkness
Uh-oh.
out of 5. So I'm trying to decide here. I think it's probably worthwhile. GM, can I, from earlier in the fight, can I take a darkness trigger for putting yourself in harm's way for a friend? I can do another round of protecting if you want it to be more immediate.
I think, yeah, we should try and have it more timely, which is convenient because this is the top of the next round.
Totally fine with that. Then how are Kris and Eliza doing right now? Are they both looking pretty battered at this point?
Eliza's only suffered 1 stress, and it wasn't even this fight. I'm not sure where it came from.
Oh,
I just keep missing you.
Well?
I hate you so much.
Kris looks shockingly worn, but also determined.
well then, I think with everything attacking, let's see.
I will say However, Kris tends to fight at a distance and will probably not take a ton of stress given that y'all are where you are. So, despite looking worn, she's probably going to be okay.
That's a good point, actually. I think I'm just gonna do a normal protect on Eliza, and then I have a thought if I get to take the put yourself in harm's way for a friend trigger from doing so.
Depends on how you're doing it.
I am bodily throwing myself in front of in between Eliza and the enemies.
All right. I would say that suffices.
Okay. Do you want to do I make the protect roll and then see what your enemy turn wants to be, and then I'll trigger?
I think the appropriate thing to do here is you decide whether you want to make your roll first or whether you want to use your shift trigger first.
Okay. I think I would like to make the roll first. I'll use +1 for endure. That is a 9 total.
And you feel something lurch inside you as that shift trigger activates.
Yes, I think we see a pinkish purple energy leaking out of Desdemona, even though she's not transformed. As she reaches her breaking point, I think we see her outfit flickering between what she's actually wearing and her transformed self before screaming as like as low as possible, and that same pinkish purple energy washing over the battlefield before falling over.
And as you are screaming, you feel this strength welling up inside you, leaking out. You can see where the shadow washes over your clothing. You can see through it. The clothing seems to be overlaid with that image of that pink that you hate so much. And it's not a physical sensation. There's something else that you can't quite put a name to. A thought creeps into your mind. This is a strength that you've never felt like this before. You have tapped into this power, you have used it before, but this is so much stronger. If you could tap into this, you could help your friends, you could wipe out the things that are hurting them. You wouldn't have to leave anything to doubt.
I can protect them.
And then there's that break and that power washes out from you and it is gone and you collapse.
And should we mechanically explain this breaking point?
Why don't you do that?
Okay, so Desdemona's breaking point is called galvanize. When she reaches her breaking point, in the words of I'll just use the words on the page. When you can't endure, others can go on. After you reach your breaking point, your glimmering influence hovers over the battlefield, warding others from harm. You gain a bank of stress equal to your current conviction, which at a breaking point should always be 5, right?
Correct.
Cool. For the rest of the scene, you may spend this stress 1-to-1 to reduce stress that allies take. Any effects on attacks that are shielded do not occur, meaning could I have intervened to stop the sludge mass from
Correct.
stopping? Cool. So Des is out of the fight, but she is still going to get to help.
All right. So as the two of you see this darkness start to leak out and grow, and then the explosion of darkness arcs across the field, how do the other two react?
We get the shot of Eliza looking down at Des, who is right in front of her, and there's just this look of concern and outright fear on her face.
Kris's face has gone paler, if paler was possible. She is nearly in this silt-based river, and the determination on her face looks like it is twofold. One, to stand her ground, and two, to make sure her team gets out of there. And this is where I'd like to ask the GM if I can give a proposition.
I'm listening.
Oh my god, I'm listening. That's the best.
Uh-oh.
If Kris takes the moment here to stand herself up and make the decision to finish this, would that work for Kris's light shift trigger of taking necessary action that others won't?
I don't think so, no. Because everyone here is very all in on this.
Yeah, it's not leading the way into a stressful situation because we're already in it. It's also not really speaking a blunt truth, but that was the options that I had.
I want to point out that that was Dez's turn at the start of the round, which means it is my turn now.
Yeah.
Yay!
Kris has not entirely moved out of this zone yet. It's going to start attacking Eliza. And this one does actually hit. That's a 7.
How much stress is that?
That is 1 point of stress as these shadowy fists try and pummel you.
I think as the fists would have connected, I think maybe Desdemona's shield appears in front of Eliza to shield her from that.
Indeed. This is that same pink-purple color. The metal seems to be shrouded in darkness and almost leaking it, but it does appear.
It threw me for a moment when you said metal, because I just realized that I've been picturing the shield being made of, like, stained glass.
That's cooler.
Oh,
I don't know where that came from.
that is really
Let
cool.
me do that description again.
All right.
Yeah, the stained glass of this shield as it appears looks like the other side is cast in night, and that night is leaking through as it seems to almost be bleeding darkness, but it does appear and intervene and stop this attack.
All right. I have a thing I want Eliza to do.
Uh-huh.
Well, two things. First off, with this shield in front of her, Eliza just grins, and I think she's going to, like, reach out and try to take it, holding it on her arm. Does that work, or is it, like, intangible?
I think it appears and blocks the attack and then immediately disappears.
Okay, never mind that. I was hoping for her to go sword and shield, but that's fine. All right. I think with this thing's pseudopod still partly wrapped around Kris, Eliza just looks at it and she takes a pose for a moment. The fire on her sword shifting from gold to a shining silver. And she just pulls the sword in an upward cut and slices straight through the pseudopod as I roll a fight attack. And I get an 11 on the dice, so
Good lord.
probably yes.
Yeah, you cut upward on this thing and it slices it free. As the stump withdraws, it shifts and you see what looks like a orb of purple calcite inside of it. And if you would like, you can immediately take this moment to stab through it.
All right. As a minor note, that was the light trigger rescue a friend from physical peril, which is why Eliza's now at 3 lights. And yeah, she's going to immediately carry through for that follow-up attack, which is that a separate fight roll?
No, because you reduce this thing to 0 stress, you are able to strike it down pretty much immediately. The sludge lurches and contracts and shakes and then finally subsides into the mud and the water. And Hazel's body is laying there.
Eliza immediately checks for a stab wound.
There is a stab wound on her chest.
Oh.
She is surprisingly conscious. She is coughing and in quite a bit of pain. And she seems to have lost her camera and her length of pipe, but she is conscious. She's cradling that injury.
And there's still the other two solid shadow creatures, right?
Correct.
Great.
Which brings us, I believe, to one of their turns. As you are distracted looking at Hazel, this thing is going to come up behind you and take a swing. That is a 10 on the dice, so as it has a harm of 1, it only deals 1 stress.
I think it would be fun to spend one of my other points. The shield appears behind Eliza to bounce that attack off as well.
Eliza doesn't even notice as this one appears behind her. Stop
Too
that.
distracted with Hazel.
Which leads us to the second still standing member of the team. There are only 2 enemies left, these 2 semi-solid shadows.
Kris steps fully into the river, braced this time properly. Watch your back, coach! And she's going to take a moment to, once again, line up a shot and pick off one of these shadows. So I would like to use Read on a new enemy here. Alright, with our Read at +4. It occurs to me, I don't know what ammo Kris is using right now.
Silt from the river.
I think you're right. She grits her teeth, reaches down into the riverbed, and pulls up a very wet ball of sand. And for a moment, it is wet, and it's like trying to hold water in your hands. But she focuses. I have to do this. I have to get them out of this. And light burns the water away and fills the sand such that it is stretched like the skin of a volleyball. And she sets that up for her shot. Okay. That is an 8 on the dice, +4.
That'll do it. That puts this one down, and as it is still reeling from failing to strike Eliza, it takes this chunk of river silt and magic, and the light drives through it and almost twists it apart, and the shadow dissipates as the silt slams into the ground and collapses and leaves a small crater.
There is a disgusted smile on Kris's face. She wants to be done with this.
The last one's going to try to run. It looks around. A minute ago, this was a more than fair fight, and suddenly things are not going the way it would like, so it is going to attempt to flee. It starts scrambling up the bank that you all came from. It climbs in a way that almost defies gravity. Its hands are digging into the dirt. It's pulling itself up by the trunk of a tree, and it reaches the top of the escalade, and it disappears over the top of the bank. And then there's a gunshot, and you see the shadow fall back and dissipate, and a voice ring out, "Oh my God, is everyone okay?" And Faith appears at the top of the bank.
Is that a gun?
He has a gun?
Yeah, what's your question?
Why did we leave you in the car?
Somebody needed to watch the feed after you hung up. I
Hazel, now!
oh shoot. Okay. That we have a first aid kit in the car. I can go and get that, or we can try and move her.
Yeah.
Go get it. Go get it, go get it.
She disappears and runs.
Eliza rushes to Hazel's side. She does not know what she's doing or how to assess injuries properly.
Hazel seems to be keeping pressure on the injury, but she's having a hard time breathing. Is Desdemona moving?
I think she's trying to get to her feet. Not doing too hot. Still feeling overwhelmed with all that extra energy.
Eliza looks at Desdemona looks at Kris, looks at Hazel. She's panicking a bit, but the start of an idea is forming in her mind.
Kris is carefully moving out of the river and back onto the bank. I know a little CPR, but she's breathing, right?
Yeah. You, Faith, Hazel, stay with us.
Shit, this is stuff I don't know well enough yet. Kris will absolutely kneel and do her best to support Hazel here. I think her sports medicine training is kicking in. It's just not enough. It's not proper first aid.
You can see Hazel is struggling to breathe, and every time she inhales, she looks like she's in pain.
Just keep breathing. Keep breathing. Faith's coming.
Kris turns to Desdemona. Des, I need you awake. I need you up right now. Do you know proper first aid? Please. Please.
I can try to help if we know
This
what
is
she
more
needs.
than first aid.
I'm
She needs a hospital, and she needs it now.
yeah. Let's get her in the car.
No, the car's not fast enough. As soon as Faith is back with the patch. Eliza looks up, hoping Faith is coming running.
Nothing yet.
Desdemona is gonna also kneel down, and I know this isn't gonna do anything, but she's gonna spend her remaining protection points just investing them into Hazel.
Okay. Des, give me a notice roll.
Okay. Yeah, that's a 3.
Okay. So what you don't notice is a sucking sound whenever she starts to inhale.
Uh-oh. Rob knows what that is, but Eliza doesn't.
She starts to become paler and paler, but finally Faith is able to get back with a first aid kit, and she's not really sure what to do, but once she moves Hazel's hand, I think she's able to figure out. You can see an open wound over her lung. Faith does her best to patch up Hazel, and then looks at you all. And I'm doing the best I can, but I think she needs a hospital like now.
He does, and Eliza starts to pick Hazel up.
Des, call.
Not car, not fast enough.
Call!
No, I've got it. Eliza's wings unfold, and she just looks at the rest of the group and says, "Meet us there." And she crouches down to take off.
Des pulls out her phone. I'm assuming you want me to call 911?
Not if Eliza's... Fuck.
Eliza, what are you doing?
She is taking off. She knows where the hospital is, and she is going to give up on all subtlety. She is flying Hazel to the hospital.
Like a streaking silver comet across the night sky over Winchester. And you do get there in just a minute or two. This is the fastest you have ever flown.
And when she lands, she detransforms and dismisses the battle dress, partly for subtlety and partly because she doesn't want to walk into the hospital with someone with a stab wound while she's got a sword on her hip.
That makes sense. And I think that's a good place for us to call it for this episode. As Eliza walks into the hospital, we see the doors part. She steps into the light and the doors close behind her, and the scene fades out. Thank you everyone so much for playing. Thank you to our audience for listening. I hope to see you next time. Have a good night. Thank you again for joining us on this adventure. With Conviction is a production of Silver Maiden Games. If you would like to play Conviction, check out the game at silvermaidengames.itch.io. Music for the intro and outro of this podcast is A Soul with Conviction by Doom Vega, who you can find on Bandcamp. Music within the episodes is by Rachel Rose Mitchell, who you can find on Bandcamp and Spotify. All rights to the music are retained by their original artist. Production and editing are done by myself and the With Conviction cast. Thank you all. This would not be what it is without you. You can find this podcast on Spotify and YouTube or silvermaidengames.wordpress.com. You can also find more about the game, podcast, and ways to contact us at silvermaidengames.wordpress.com.